Hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy Jeremy from Randolph Running Club, and I'm here today to talk to you guys about my recent marathon attempt for my first ever marathon. Seeing as that got canceled, I ran that race virtually here in Miami, Florida, and didn't quite go according to plan. So I got a race breakdown for you. I'll talk about where I'm gonna go next. Injury updates, training updates, and yeah, just what's in the pipeline for me. But first, I really want to get into this race breakdown. As you saw, this kind of alludes to the title and the crux of what I want to talk to you about, which is, how I kind of messed up my first marathon and the way that I'm looking at this, my outlook on it, and how I want to improve and just move forward in the future. So, talking about the race, I'm going to pull this up here on the screen. Didn't quite go to plan. Okay, so get my record going. There we go. So as you can see here on the screen, I ran for just a shade under 2 hours. It was an hour, 57 minutes, 41 seconds, 12.97 miles at roughly a 9:04 pace. Now, my goal when I was in New York in much cooler temperatures, just kind of different training that I was doing at that time. For instance, I was hoping that I could potentially run this first marathon in 3 hours and 30 minutes. As I got closer and closer and closer to this actual race, I realized there were certain things that I kind of need as a runner, as an athlete, that were not going to be provided to me during a virtual marathon. Like the energy of the crowd, the competition of running against other people, and just really, having those aid stations and everything, and an actual course that's kind of keeping you, propelling forward. And I just kind of realized, without that, and running in Miami where, the temperatures are a lot higher humidity, things were just going to be a little bit more difficult. So as my training progressed, I kind of scaled back my expectations. And I think my goal for this race, I had a couple goals, would have been a sub 4 hour marathon. So, looking here at the 9:04 pace, technically I was on pace to break that 4 hour barrier, but let's be honest, as I break this down for you, you'll kind of see that probably wasn't the case. That's probably not what was going to happen. So the way that I kind of prepared for this was I wanted to break the course down into 4 segments so that it was something kind of more digestible for my mind, for the way I think about it when I'm on a run. So each segment for me was going to be about 6.5 miles. And I'll come over here to the actual breakdown of like my paces and the laps, lap times, distances, etc. And my goal was to go out there and just be very easy. Don't start off too hard. Definitely let my legs come along and let the race kind of come to me. So, I started off at about 6:30 in the morning. First 2 miles went according to plan. A little bit slower than my kind of desired race pace. So I started off around 9 minutes 13 for mile 2, and really just felt nice and easy, nice and light on my feet. Honestly, at that point, I thought, man, it's going to be a great day. So as I crossed over the I-395, kind of causeway that takes you into Miami Beach from Miami proper, that there's like a big uphill. So I said, all right, let me kind of pace myself through that. And right at the crest of that hill was when I got to about the 2 mile mark. So I don't want to say I dropped the hammer down, because I could definitely run a lot faster than this. But in terms of like marathon pacing and making sure that my legs were still going to be fresh, hopefully, I dropped the pace down to about 8:38. Then you see mile 4, 8:15. So everything's going according to plan. As a matter of fact, this was the point in the race definitely where I thought anything is possible today. It feels like my day. It just feels great. Mile 5, it started to rain pretty badly. I actually ran into what felt like a terrible rainstorm. I mean, it was completely gray. The rain almost felt like hell. Like it was thick, if that makes sense. And I didn't have a hat or shades or anything like that on me. And this is the point where I decided I wasn't going to record anymore, because I had my camera on me. The DJI Osmo Pocket is not technically water resistant. So, at that point I said, oh, my camera's soaked. I'm just going to run with it, but I'm not going to actually record anymore. And also my gimbal, or not my gimbal, I'm sorry, but my like selfie stick, extension stick, started to kind of malfunction. I guess there was like water caught in between where the contacts are and stuff. So for whatever reason, I didn't have control of the camera, so I had to actually dismount the camera and use it like that anyway. So that's the reason there's not much footage from here. So anyway, at that point I kind of slowed down a little bit to like that 8:37, and kind of in my mind, at each one of these 6.5 mile intervals, I figured to myself, I'm going to stop here, or not stop, but kind of slow down my pace a little bit, take a gel, maybe eat some fruit, replenish on, my hydration, and then press on and kind of drop the hammer a little bit after that. So, I kind of maintained that like 8:15 to 8:30-ish pace for a while. And then you see when I get to like mile 6, I started dropping back down 8:44, mile 7, 9:19, still feeling really good. And at this point, I just want to, shout out my lovely fiance, Chelsea, and my mom actually both were on this route. I shared with them the route that I was going to be running and kind of the times that I expected to be in certain places. And, they were right there on cue, handing me Gatorade, handing me gels, oranges, things like that to kind of keep me going. So right around mile 7 was the first time that, I met up with them, and they handed me some nutrients and everything, some fuel to help me keep going. So that's kind of why you see the pace dip at mile 7. Mile 8, back on it, 8:38. But this is where disaster started for me. Right around the time that I finished mile 8, probably starting mile 9, I really started to feel my hamstring a lot, and it wasn't kind of one of those things where it's like a quick pain or something, or it's like, oh, I'm starting to cramp or something kind of gradual. It felt like with every step I was feeling it, and at first I said, maybe this is normal, maybe this is something that I can kind of run through, and I'll get over it after a while. But it became very apparent to me when I got to like mile 10, my pace had kind of dropped, even though my effort maintained similar. And I started to realize that, maybe this is something insurmountable. Maybe this is something that I can't actually beat. So you see there, mile 10, 9:08 pace. And I just personally wasn't feeling very confident in my legs at that point. My hamstrings, particularly my right hamstring, was starting to feel really tight and bothersome. And normally I feel like my limiting factor when my legs aren't in shape enough for the type of running that I'm doing, it's usually my calves, I feel like, that are kind of my indicator. But my calves felt great. So I knew this was something more of like an injury, if you will. And what that ended up leading to was I think my form kind of started to break down there. So for mile 10 to kind of 11, as you see me slow down even more, I started to feel like my hips were feeling kind of overworked. My quads were starting to burn, and I was on relatively flat ground. So for me, what I was thinking was, as my hamstring was kind of becoming more injured and feeling a little bit worse for wear, I was kind of changing my actual form and starting to break down my form a little bit, to the point where, I was overworking my hips, overworking my quads, and that's just a recipe for disaster, of course. So you see mile 12, I just started thinking to myself, as I kind of got down to like a crawl almost, I said, all I want to do is just get to the next point at, mile 13.1, basically half marathon distance. And I said, when I meet with my fiance again, when I meet with my mom, I don't want to walk before I see them. So I just want to get to that point. But mile 12, it just became a little bit too much, and I actually ended up having to walk for a couple seconds there. And that's why you see that pace drop down to 9 minutes and 52 seconds per mile. And then mile 13, it just got even worse. And it was really kind of like a throbbing pain. Almost felt like I was pulling my hamstring. So I said, you know what, tapping out there. So as soon as I got to the check-in point with my fiance, I kind of called it quits there and said, hey, let's load everything up in the car and let's head back home. So, that is kind of what I have there. Sorry, let me turn off my screen record. Okay, there we go. So, that was kind of the gist of what happened there. So, that's my race breakdown, and I have kind of two reasons why I think that this happened, and kind of my outlook and how I want to move on from here. So point number one is, I think, just training or lack of training, and not specifically running. I think I was doing enough running. I was running about 40 to 45 miles per week. And at kind of the peak of this training block, I got up to about 55 miles, I think, something like that. So I think I was running enough miles. I had done tons of long runs on the weekends. I was getting to a point where I was running, 10-mile runs that I would normally have considered long runs months ago, but I was getting it to the point where I was running, 10 miles on a random Wednesday or something. So I really felt like my cardiovascular fitness was getting there, and the base was strong. But due to this pandemic, I really feel like I was lacking in just doing like leg strength kind of training. So typically, before lockdown started, I was a guy who was going to the gym probably 4 or 5 times a week, and running was a little bit more of like a supplement to that kind of working out style. So what I feel like ended up happening was I was doing a ton of body weight workouts. I was doing a ton of, running, cycling, but, I don't feel like I was necessarily getting any faster or anything. And I think that was dedicated to just not having the same leg strength that I normally would be used to from, going to the gym and squatting 2 or 3 times a week, doing deadlifts and lunges with weights and all these things like that, jump squats, or box jumps. And what I think it just broke down to was kind of overextending myself in the form of running, but not also doing enough to build up my leg strength and glute strength and things like that to go with it. I think caused me to have a little bit of a breakdown in my form, and ultimately kind of lead to me being injured. But also, and this is point number 2, I truly believe that I kind of should have been a little bit more honest with myself. I think I tweaked my hamstring on a tempo run kind of towards the end, right before I started my taper. And, it felt better as I kind of progressed through my taper, but I don't think I ever fully let it like recover, because, in my mind I was like, I gotta run this marathon, blinders, I'm doing it. I'm going for this race. And, by the time I actually got into the actual race day, I figured, at the paces that I'm running, it's never really bothered me before. I think I'll be okay. It's really only when I'm going, 7-minute mile pace, 6:30-minute pace or something, on these really fast, tempo runs or threshold runs or whatever. And ultimately, I think I was wrong. I think you have to listen to your body. Your body knows itself better than anybody else, or even you can sometimes. And, I should have just been honest with myself that I was kind of going into this already a little bit hurt, and just taking the time to actually recover. And especially because the race was virtual, I could have run this anytime. I was really just doing it for myself. I already have the medal, I already have the shirt and everything, and now I kind of feel like I didn't earn that stuff. So there's that. So positives, takeaways that I wanted to have for this race. Last year in 2019 was the second official marathon that I ran, and my first one years ago in Nashville was kind of like a disaster. I think I did it in like 2.5 hours, and I did a ton of walking. I did not train adequately for that, and it was just a bad experience all around. But the one last year I ran in Queens while I was still in New York, and that to me was like a perfect marathon basically for me. And I think I ran in like 1 hour and 59 minutes or something, And I remember when I crossed the finish line, I was so excited to have finished it in 1 hour and 59 minutes. I thought that was amazing. And it's crazy to me because, as I ran this marathon attempt, I crossed the 13-mile point at like 1 hour and 57. So this would have been like my fastest marathon, like at this time last year. And it's crazy to me because I look at this and I'm thinking, wow, this was a failure. Oh my gosh, I could have done so much better. I could have really been so much faster. I didn't finish or whatever. And it's like, really take the positives, like through this training block, I've improved so much that what would have been my PR a year ago is now a failure. So I think that's a really big takeaway. Now, granted, I've run faster half marathons this year, even in training and things like that. I think my PR right now is like 1 hour and 44 and change. But point of the story, it's you don't want to lose sight of the forest through the trees, right? So I don't want to take for granted, the fitness that I've gained and kind of where I've gone, and overlook, where I'm coming from just because I'm a little bit disappointed in the current result. And as far as moving forward, I think I'm just going to run for the joy of running for a couple weeks here as I recover, just kind of take it easy. Just moved to a new apartment, so I'm getting back into the gym, getting back into, adding some water workouts like swimming in the pool, things like that. And I just want to run for the fun of it, and hopefully I think maybe sometime in January when the temperatures are a little bit cooler and I've gotten everything, my body injuries kind of like got rid of all that stuff. I think I would like to do another marathon attempt because I'm just a competitive guy, and I can't let this be the thing that stops me. You know what I mean? Yeah, I can't let this be the thing that stops me. So that's all I have for you guys today. No real like intro video or anything, but got more stuff coming up. And yeah, just stay tuned. I hope that you stay blessed. I hope you inspire others out there in everything that you do. And I hope that you stay safe out there. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.